So coming to the stage is someone from South Africa.
Yeah,
nice
to be here, Steve.
Jason Jordaan is coming to the stage. He's a SANS Principal Instructor in our DEFA curriculum. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
That's a great pleasure to be here in San Francisco on this really, really busy, crazy day.
We were just talking about just how incredibly crowded and packed this trade show floor is, right?
Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. The energy is just, it's a buzz. Everybody is like, all over the place. It's really crazy, but it's really so dynamic as well. There's so much energy here.
So I saw you here yesterday. So you've had a little bit of time, to be able to get around the floor. What's been your vibe so far, and the energy that you've gotten?
Well, the vibe is really positive. I mean, what's really impressive for me is the fact that there's so many organizations and vendors here talking about security, having the discussions about security, whether it be service providers, solution providers, educational institutions, but all united amongst a common theme, a common discussion, and that's pretty much making the world a better place at the end of the day.
Yeah, love that. So, we're having this theme of discussion in the booth this week about, how cybersecurity experts got their start in the field. And I'd love to get your insight and input on how you got your foot in the door in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I suppose my journey was an interesting one. I was a child of the 80s, growing up in the microcomputer, home computing sort of era. And when I left school, I had to go do, at that stage in South Africa, to do compulsory national service. And a colleague of mine said, well, why don't you go join the police? Because then you can go and study computer science. And I thought, oh, this is a great idea. I'll get a sort of a study bursary similar to the GI Bill that you would get in the United States. And I thought, wonderful. And the year that I joined the police, they did away with the computer science studies. But I found out I had a real knack for investigations, ended up working as a detective.
Right.
And then because I was the resident nerd in the unit that I worked in, any case that came along that remotely looked like it had to do with computers, I was the guy that got the case. So I literally got into digital forensics right at the beginning, when we didn't even call it digital forensics. It was just a bunch of cop nerds finding evidence on computers at the end of the day.
That's pretty neat. So you touched on it. You worked as a detective in South Africa, and you actually ended up establishing the Digital Forensics Laboratory for the South African Police's Special Investigating Unit. What was that like, Jason? Did you enjoy working in that capacity?
So the Special Investigating Unit didn't fall under the South African Police Service. It fell under the Department of Justice, so a separate law enforcement agency. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. When I got transferred from the police to the Special Investigating Unit, I had this opportunity to really engage with digital forensics. It gave me an opportunity to really set the groundwork for actually building up what became one of the sort of first formal law enforcement labs in South Africa. And it was an amazing experience, setting up the protocols, setting up the principles, literally building something from the ground up that has really become one of the sort of leading digital forensics law enforcement labs in South Africa.
Wow. Was that hard but rewarding work?
It was very hard, but also very rewarding as well. I mean, it's kind of nice when you take something and you build it with your own two hands, and you literally start from the ground up. But where it was really rewarding was seeing the growth of the people that I actually had working in the lab with me, mentoring these new people, getting into the field and helping them grow. And that sort of engendered my love for teaching and training and things along those lines. It was an amazing experience to see that. And I was very sad to leave it at the end of the day, but I went on to different things, and I think I'm making even more of a difference now than I made back then.
I love, and I'll pause right there. We've now had, this is the third conversation today. For those of you who have been tuned in this morning and heard from Heather and heard from Rob Lee and listening to Jason, it's a common thread. It's a part of your heart to impact and to mentor and to help the next generation of cyber professionals rise up and take their part.
Yeah, I mean it's very important. When I was a police officer, I learned a lot from senior police officers. So So as a young detective, I was partnered up with a more experienced detective. I learned the ropes through that person. So there's this idea of mentoring the younger generations and the new generations was inculcated in me, and it's something I feel very, very strongly about. I'm getting to that point in my life, I suppose you can say, where you've got to think about the impact that you make, and being able to impart knowledge and to help the next generation grow and take the role that you're eventually going to move out of,
Right.
is really important, because that's how we grow our community, that's how we grow our industry, is by continuing to develop the next generation. And so long as the next generation is better than we are,
Yeah.
the generation after them will be better than they are. That's how we make a difference.
True leadership. I love it. So tell me a little bit about your work developing the South African Cybercrime Act. What is it? What does it accomplish? How did you get
so it's kind of an interesting scenario. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would ever be involved in creating national legislation. But I'd been approached by the Deputy Minister of Justice, who was tasked with developing the legislation, to sit on an advisory panel for the development of this legislation. And because of the involvement that I'd had in the forensics community and the law enforcement community in South Africa, I was very involved with discussions around the legal aspects of doing investigations, how we would do digital forensics, how we would integrate it. And one of the sort of unique features of the South African legislation, I mean, aside from addressing all the different cybercrime offences out there that you would typically see, for example, in the US with the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, apart from addressing all of those crimes, we actually have a section in the legislation now which requires law enforcement agencies to specifically comply with published standard operating procedures on how to do investigations and how to do digital forensics that actually now carry the weight of law. So people that are now engaged in digital forensics and cybercrime investigations have to meet certain rigid criteria for that evidence to have value in court, and it sets the rules of the game, which I think is a unique situation we haven't seen in any other countries yet. But I think it's important to make sure that digital forensics has a very strong, robust place when it comes to the justice system as a whole.
That's quite interesting. What have you been focusing your attention on this week?
So besides dealing with jet lag, I've been really focusing my attention on getting a feel for some of the newer developments. The going around the different talks and presentations this week has been really enlightening. Be able to see some of the cutting edge research and topics that people are talking about. And I think that for me is really fascinating when I see where we're going, and I think about yesterday's keynote about where we're going to be in 50 years' time. That's been quite impressive. And I think as forensic practitioners and professionals, we've got to anticipate what those changes will be, so we stay ahead of the curve rather than being reactionary to the developments in technology.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause right there and give another plug for our SANS keynote coming up in just a couple of hours. I'm looking beyond our cameras at Heather Mahalik, still in the audience, getting ready for the 5 most dangerous new attack techniques. That's happening today at 3:55 p.m. in Moscone West, level 1. And that's going to be an amazing panel moderated by Ed Scotus. You're going to have talks from Dr. Johannes Ulrich, Heather Mahalik, Katie Nichols, Steve Sims. You don't want to miss that panel coming up later today at 3:55 p.m. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about your course. You teach Forensics 508, Advanced Incident Response, Threat Hunting, and Digital Forensics. Tell us a little bit more about the course and who that is ideally suited for.
So the 508 course is, one of SANS's top courses, and it really deals with addressing intrusion and other types of security incidents within an organization. But besides talking about the investigative techniques of how to actually investigate those kind of incidents, what it also really looks at is how we can do proactive investigations in enterprise environments. I always like to think of this as a detective, something bad had to happen before I came in and did my investigation. But if we take a proactive investigative approach, like we do, we teach on the 508 course, we can actually start to identify bad actors in our environments before the damage that they cause actually becomes material. So that really mirrors what we see with a lot of modern investigative techniques around the world. And I think that's absolutely critical these days, is we don't wait for something bad to happen before we investigate.
Yeah.
We constantly investigate, and we're constantly looking for bad things in our environments. And so long as we're doing that, we can actually catch the bad guys before they actually materially impact on the networks in a negative way.
Wow. How long have you been teaching for Sense?
Oh wow! I think it's about 10 years now.
Wow.
So I taught for a while. I was in instructor development for a while before getting certified.
So I heard something mentioned. How did you actually get introduced to Sense?
So I was attending the SANS course in South Africa,
Where are you?
the 408 course, which was then the earlier Windows Forensics course. And my instructor was Jess Garcia, who's also presenting at RSA this week. And another SANS instructor, Ted Demopoulos, was there teaching another course. And I ended up helping out Jess in his class. He had a lot of students, so it was in my nature to really just jump up and assist. And he said to me the one day, look, we're doing a SANS at night thing on Wednesday night. Would you like to come and do a presentation? So I'm like, okay, cool. And
you give a talk.
Went and gave a sort of impromptu talk at a SANS at night event. And both Ted and Jess came up to me and said, look, you're actually a pretty good instructor. We think you'd be suitable for SANS, and that's how they got me to the journey.
Wow.
Something I never in my wildest dreams would have thought would have been possible.
Right.
But because they'd identified me, I suppose we put it this way, identified my passion, and effectively started me on this road to my amazing SANS journey.
So you touched on something. We were standing up before we came on. You shared with me. You're actually more introverted than an extrovert.
Yeah, that's very true.
So what would you say to, the professional watching a stream who, has a passion for cybersecurity, for helping other people, but probably would say, hey, I'm not Jason. I could never see myself speaking publicly, teaching in that capacity. What would be your advice to them?
Well, the advice from my side is just talk. I mean, I know this sounds really, really crazy, but I'm naturally an introverted person.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite shy. Well, nobody ever believes me when I say that these days. But that's my normal nature. But I've learned to talk to people. And here's the thing: even if you are introverted and you are shy, if you're passionate about something, you can have natural conversations with people about your passion.
Right.
Because it's your passion that drives you during those discussions. So for me, anybody that wants to start talking, anybody who wants to put themselves out there, don't be afraid. Put yourselves out there. Go and talk. Talk at a small event. Go to Toastmasters. You were mentioning that with Heather.
Absolutely,
Just talk to people and don't be afraid. And here's the thing. You'll hear this a lot with people in our industry. You'll hear people talk about this concept of imposter syndrome, like feeling that I'm not good enough. I mean, here's the thing. I've been doing forensics for over 30 years. And every case I work on, I still have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, but now you know how to have that self-talk back.
Exactly. So here's the thing. There's a certain level of wisdom that comes when you realize that you don't know everything. And there's a certain level of humility that comes into knowing that you don't know.
Yeah.
But the difference is when you don't know, you know what to go and still learn. So the lesson that I'd like to say to people out there that think they don't know enough, embrace the fact that you don't know enough. Embrace the fact that there's still more for you to learn, because it's that knowledge that you have more to learn will keep you humble, but also hungry for knowledge, and that's how you continue to grow.
So, what is it that you're hungry to learn right now? What's driving you as you look forward over this next year?
So, what I'm actually quite interested in terms of driving myself personally is really looking at the whole impact of artificial intelligence and how that's going to impact on investigations. Rob was talking in the previous segment about the impact of AI. We are seeing AI having a huge impact, and as a forensic practitioner, my drive is to learn more about the actual maths behind it, the actual algorithms, the science behind artificial intelligence and where that's potentially going. Because for me as a forensic practitioner, I'm ultimately going to have to stand up in court one day and explain these things to a jury or to a judge.
Right.
So that's my current challenge at the moment, and where I'm driving myself is moving myself outside of that comfort zone into a very deep machine learning, very heavy mathematics orientated approach. But it's exciting.
Is there anyone that you're following right now that you're able to pick up some of that knowledge from? I mean, everyone right now is trying to learn.
So one of the people that I've been following a lot is my fellow friend of mine and sales instructor, Jason Garcia. He's been doing some amazing research around the use of machine learning in digital forensics. But besides him, I follow a lot of mathematicians and some computer scientists around the world that are doing research in this area. So there's a lot. It's a growing, burgeoning community, and it's really exciting to see where we're going to go.
It is. I mean, listening to Rob, listening to you, you have my thought. My mind is going in 10 directions on what the possibilities are with AI and the exposure.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I mean, I was joking with Heather earlier. It's like I can't wait to do my first investigation where AI actually sort of a self-aware AI, if I can put it that way, actually commits a crime that normally we would attribute to a human being and have to investigate that.
And you're excited about this?
I'm excited. I'm excited about having to dig into the algorithms and the mechanism of how this actually happened and being able to prove that in court. It's hugely exciting. I know it's kind of weird because I've got to wait for something bad to happen. But that's the exciting part about it, is that there's a whole new frontier of science, a whole new frontier of computing that we can look at, and that for me is just absolutely amazing. The prospects of what am I going to be investigating in a year's time, or 10 years time, or 20 years time. It's so exciting.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything else you'd want to share with our community?
Well, for those of you that are at RSA, I'd love you guys to come and attend my talk tomorrow on applying forensic engineering to incident response. One of the things we're looking at in terms of security is just improving overall accountability and improving, making sure that organizations are more accountable for the security, and forensic engineering. Forensic engineering definitely provides that option. Otherwise,
tell us the time of your talk.
I think it's at 10, just after 10. I can't remember the exact time off the top of my head. I know I've got to be there at 10, so I think it's 30 minutes before that. But in terms of the community itself, and I hear them mention a bit earlier, SANS puts out a lot of resources out there for the community. We have a lot of material that we share. And for those of you that are interested in getting into digital forensics specifically, SANS has an amazing resource, our new to defer brochure that we put out. I've been involved in writing part of that material. It gives some really, really good insights into how to get into forensics specifically, and also to the community. Feel free to reach out to us as SANS instructors. We're very passionate about the community.
We're very approachable.
Reach out to us if you've got questions. Ask us. We're happy to help. And that's what I want to do. So when I challenge people out there that want to get into this field, reach out to us. We're happy to help.
Where will you be next?
Next, hopefully I'll be home for a few days. I'll be going home for a few days just to catch up with my investigating team and sort of look at some of the cases we're working on. And then I will be in Saudi Arabia at the end of May, and then Amsterdam. That's what I'll be teaching my next event.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking some time to hang with us here in the booth. Definitely be sure to follow Jason on social, check out his course offerings and where he's teaching over on the SANS website. Jason, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Stack. Much appreciated.